Marla introduced us, I think, about 6 weeks ago, and I feel like I've known you for about 20 years.
For years.
So this is a really important conversation about how do we as organizations challenge ourselves to bring work and life together. And I think it comes around to wellness and perks and the difference between those. And certainly coming from Facebook, where perks is almost an outlawed word these days. I'm looking forward to the conversation to hear about how Horizon has really led the charge in building wellness programs and looking at work-life balance. So perhaps tell us a little bit about your role, how you got there, and we'll start there.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I work at Horizon now. I'm coming up on 14 years, which is quite a long time. I'm responsible for all things people, culture, space, and experience. And when I started with the company, we were about 250 people, and now we're around 2,000. So it's been quite a journey and quite an evolution of change within the company. Just a little bit about my past. I have always worked in a creative environment. I started in entertainment way back many years ago, and then I worked at a PR agency for a very long time, and then I also worked at another media agency. So my professional trajectory has always been in the creative space. And for some reason, I have always found myself in a position of building. Like nothing existed, and I always had to create, and I always had to build, whether it was a department, it was a practice, it was an idea, something that just required me to always be building. And I guess that has become a little bit of my hallmark over the years. And I love that. Like, don't put me in a static situation. Like, I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always anticipating what's around the corner, what are the trends, what's relevant. And I think I'm driven a little bit by the fear of not being relevant. And I think in the business that we're in, and particularly as HR practitioners, we have to stay relevant to what matters to our employees. And so that's a very important driver for me. And then on a personal level, exercise has always been really important, both physical and then also more about kind of mindfulness. I'm always trying to seek the balance of just being healthy, both physically, but also trying to just keep my mind calm and have a peaceful, simple existence. And so it's a little bit of the East meets West ideologies coming together. And at Horizon, what's great about Horizon is that it really is about the whole person showing up. And so I have been able to practice with my whole being what I do at the company.
Great. And I think that's really relevant, particularly today. We talk about the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter. And I think, what's coming through now is mental health. So, a lot around mental health issues in the workplace. And, people being able to feel safe to come forward and say, I'm struggling, I have challenges. I certainly know when I left my last employer to go to Facebook, I was at a stage where I wanted to get better work-life balance. Certainly felt that at Facebook, and if anyone wants a conversation about that, I'm happy to share that with you.
You had it at Facebook?
Absolutely had it, yeah. And pleased to say, I think I have it at the 4A's too, so I can thank Marla for that. So I was surprised when I was sort of doing a little bit of research around this topic, which is dear to my heart, that in 2017, US statistics showed that the corporate wellness programs was a $7 billion industry, but the Global Wellness Institute valued it at $40 billion. So the same research said that less than 9% of organizations were actually spending time on wellness programs. And there was a confusion around wellness and perks. So help us understand how Horizon has separated perks from wellness and what that differentiation looks like.
So we definitely have perks. I mean, perks are essential. I think we're all struggling with trying to find the best way to keep our people and to stay relevant. So we absolutely have a lot of perks. But over the years, we have shifted to more of what I like to call a lifestyle experience. And it's really trying to understand what matters to our employees and then create the space within Horizon to allow that to happen. Because everybody, as we say, is bringing their whole selves to work. And what that means is that not only coming to the company to perform a job, but they're bringing their interests, their hobbies, their experiences, their desires. And so if you can tap into all of that and create those lifestyle experiences, then you're really creating something that is a bit more everlasting than just the transaction of getting a perk.
Yeah.
We are pretty much of an immediate gratification culture, and I think perks feed into that. But I think there has been a significant shift over the years towards, again, more lifestyle experiences, really focusing on relationships and things that matter and going a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm. So maybe explain to us, because I've been to your offices, which are, obviously, again, I keep going back to Facebook, which have amazing offices, but I think yours rival those easily. So
nice.
Talk to us a little bit about the wellness programs you've implemented in your office space around, health, and particularly around fitness.
Yep. So we are very fortunate because we were able to build a corporate headquarters, I wouldn't say even a compound in Lower Manhattan, because it has a lot of opportunities for people to get involved. So we have a gym, and it's called Horizon, and that is on one floor, which is completely separate from where all the offices are. And that's a full complement of your typical gym. But what we were able to do within that facility was we were able to bring an acupuncturist, and she was with us, I guess we've had her for about 6 years. We also had somebody come in, and he created a program that's called Rest and Restore. So it's really about kind of going in order to go back out and helping people just kind of I'd say if you can't take 20 minutes for yourself during the day, then that's a huge problem. And he's helping our employees teach them how to go about doing that. And it's really all about the use of breath work to your advantage. And what's great about this particular program is that we started it by team. Mm-hmm. It wasn't focused on the individual, but I really wanted to get something that the teams can do together and then hold each other accountable to one another based on the experience that they shared. And that's how that program started, and it's morphed into team and then individual. And I think that one is particularly successful. We also have a room that is called the Retreat. And in the retreat, did I show you the retreat?
You did.
I did show you the retreat. That's my favorite room.
I wanted to retreat.
Yeah, you wanted to retreat in the room. It is my favorite room in the space. It's a room that is very calm. There's no technology. There's not a lot of light in there. And there's about 14 hanging silks that when you climb into them, it's very soothing, and it's kind of creates like this cocoon effect. And you can go into that room to either just rest and restore. You can go in there to meditate. There's also other space within that room that has really comfortable chairs, meditation chairs. And there's also a space for prayer, because we also have a very diverse environment, and we needed to create a space that served all people and what they were seeking in terms of whatever that meant for them. And everybody's notion of recharging is something different. So the retreat allows that to happen. We also have a health center, which is something that I'm particularly proud of. We opened the health center a year ago in January. We have a nurse practitioner and a medical assistant that comes 3 days a week, and it has been life-changing. I mean, certainly for me and for our employees, because just the idea, the knowing you can go down if you need a script, if you need to get blood drawn, if you just need to get just a physical, you can do that on site. And I'm sure many of you know getting an appointment with a doctor in Manhattan, not so easy. You have a cold, they say, I'll see you in a month. In our center, you can go, I'll see you today or I'll see you tomorrow. And it's just extremely convenient. And we're able to have scripts delivered to the office, or they can be delivered to their home. It's so convenient, the amount of time that is saved for our employees. And it's the time, but it's about taking one of life's stressors and just takes it off the table. Yeah. So that has been a huge success.
Great. And I find it fascinating because, I think a lot of people in the room, we've gone through the organizational design stage of what we believe wellness to be, which is, the fancy offices with the ping pong tables and the foosball machines and the bean bags. And we think that suffices. And we think that building a cafeteria on site, and whether that's free or is paid for, is allowing people to live their true selves. I think what's nice about what you've done is you've given them all those soft things that organizations don't think about. How would you, or what would you suggest to the organizations that don't have the ability to build the functions that you've built? How could they implement those in their day-to-day?
Well, just come work at Horizon. No, it's tricky. I don't know what it just depends on your environment. I think we have such tremendous resources, all of our companies, to just tap into your employees, find out what matters to them. Find out what's possible within your organization in terms of keeping people. It's expensive, but it's really not that expensive. I mean, it's just a room when you really think about it. The gym, none of these are that astronomically expensive to facilitate and to run. And if you have access to if you're self-insured, or even if you're not, and you understand the utilization of your employees, and again, all the data is protected, but you do get trends, you can very easily build a case to your CEO and to your CFO why something like this matters.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating, certainly at Facebook, where, the employee contribution is zero for health insurance. You have doctors on site, you have dentists on site. Now, obviously, that's a campus, but even here in New York, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
And they've done huge studies around the cost benefit of doing that. And it staggers me, sort of coming from I've been in the States 15 years, but coming from a country where healthcare is essentially free, to a place where employees have to pay out of pocket. And I think what that drives is sort of this a little bit of resentment around, well, if I'm sick, I'm paying for being, to be sick, and then I'm made to feel guilty about being out of the office or having to leave the office to go to my doctor's appointment.
Right.
So I love the idea that you've incorporated that on site so people can feel like they're empowered to look after themselves.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that was very interesting, and I'm sure many of you have the same stats, 75-80% of the organization is extremely, under 30. And so when you think about that population, many of the younger employees, they don't even have a primary care physician. So what they do is when they're not feeling well, they go to urgent care. So urgent care, one, I don't think it's the best care, and number two, it's extremely expensive. So if you start to do that analysis, you'll see what the numbers show, and it makes a lot of sense. But secondly to that, what's really great about the person that we have, it's really all about the provider. Like our nurse practitioner, she is amazing. Like everybody loves her. And so what's happening now is we are seeing the relationship that's being built between our employees and the nurse practitioner. So it's not just about acute care. Now you have somebody that you can go to for health coaching. And so you start, my hope, and we're only in year one, so don't give me the data question yet, but that employees are now establishing a connection to a medical provider. There's a relationship with continuity. There's trust being established. So now we can be way more proactive than ever before. And I think that's a really critical trend. Insurance companies and all the healthcare brokers, for years, they have been trying to push me into this carrot and stick mindset and using like health risk assessments and all these kind of different kind of tools that I have completely resisted against. We don't do that at Horizon, and I've always been looking to find other ways that are a little bit more holistic, that have greater, just kind of organic runway to improve health.
Fascinating. So I'm going to switch topics a little bit here because, I view vacation time and holiday time as a wellness benefit, not as a perk. And I think that, a lot of people who hopefully will believe that, and I think America is moving slowly towards that. Research has been done around vacation time, and there's been a lot of talk around unlimited PTO. Over the last couple of years, particularly in California, where that is more of a reality, research has actually shown that people have taken less time off with unlimited PTO because they feel nervous about the fact that, that's going to impact on their reputation, on their ability to do work, to be promoted. So, how do you feel about how we should support employees and give them options around the importance of vacation and what that vacation can look like, time can look like?
Well, it's an interesting trend that's happening, certainly at Horizon, and I bet it's happening in all of your companies as well. So just in terms of context, our LA office has, we call it My Time 365, non-accrued time, take what you want. In New York, we haven't moved in that direction yet, but I'm going to strongly encourage that we do. What I have noticed over the past couple of years, the trends in vacation time, employees are taking a minimum of 2 and 3 weeks at a time. And that was not the case. Like I don't think I've ever taken 3 weeks off, so I want to try to follow what they're doing. So I think
Me too.
Yeah, it's really been fascinating to see, and they're taking the most unbelievable trips around the world, whether it's for just vacation and sightseeing or doing very deep and meaningful philanthropic work. And so it's really fascinating to see this trend. So I understand that statistic, but I also see other things happening where there is a running to their vacation time more so than perhaps the statistics speak to.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting too, because stats around this is always debatable, because what I have found in the last couple of years, and at Media Brands we were finding this, was we were encouraging people to take their vacation time, use that as an opportunity to develop a human experience and bring that back to work and share that via social media. So if you go to a concert, or you're going away on a cruise, or you're going for a week, to replenish at a wellness clinic, like come back and share that with the employees, share your experience, and that I think helps to build a more inclusive environment as well.
Yeah, and it encourages other people to do the same, for sure.
Is there such a thing as too many options where, in fact, employees have too much to choose from and they can't select what to do? So, what's your viewers on the employers' balance on what is on offer and what can make a difference?
I don't think there's too much. I think you want to create an environment where there's something for everybody, because not everybody's picking the same experience. I know that for all of us, retention is such a big deal, and the ability to create as many customized experiences as possible is what we're after. So be able to have as much available. I don't think there's a downside. I think communication is a problem. I think getting people to be aware of what does exist, that's definitely a challenge.
Okay. Yeah. We laughed a couple of times when we met recently about the fact it doesn't matter how many wellness programs you put in place, how many perks you have. If you have a bad manager, it destroys it all. So I think the room would be really interested. Like, how do you measure wellness programs against performance, particularly against managers who need to allow their employees to take time for themselves?
It's a great question, Simon. And it's not an easy answer. The sentiment is still true that no matter what we do in terms of the lifestyle experiences, the culture, the community, and the space, if you have a shitty manager, none of that matters. That is absolutely true. So we are trying to figure out how to hold our managers accountable for wellness, and we're starting to look at different types of scorecards that we can hold our managers accountable to. So I don't have the perfect answer, because it's still something that we have to work on. I think it's just going to be I think that's an ongoing challenge. We have a lot of great training programs to help our managers lead better, but we also have made a shift recently about. I think we spend a lot of time looking at the data that explains why people are leaving. I'm kind of over that. Like, I'm tired of that. I know what the story is. It hasn't changed all that much year over year. What we're now starting to take a look at is what actually works. Who's really thriving within our organization? What teams are thriving?
I think, and I think it was interesting in the previous conversation around, hiring people into the organization and training. So, certainly at Facebook, you can't recruit people until you've gone through like a 3-week course on recruiting, which includes unconscious bias. But as managers, and the interesting way that organization and technology is, the tech companies are set up, which I think agencies should think about, is they have an IC, an individual contributor track, and a manager track, and both those tracks are identical. So you can be earning the same amount of money as a manager, as an individual contributor. You can be at the same level, but managed by somebody who's at your level. So it does away with the whole idea of, in order to be promoted, you have to manage people. To the wellness piece, what they've incorporated now is, as a manager, you are now rewarded on the opportunities you provide your teams to conduct or to go to learning and development. And on wellness. And so that brings in the question, the item that you said we didn't really want to talk about, which is data. So, one of the biggest drivers of wellness programs will be data integration. I think that's borne out with the fact that the large healthcare companies are gobbling up digital startup companies at a rate that sort of is unbelievable. Certainly at Facebook and Google, they're looking at how does wearable technology and devices help to drive down healthcare costs. Where do you see, if any, the advantages of that and the possibilities of integrating data?
Yeah, so this is something that I really struggle with. How many here have like a Fitbit, Apple Watch? A lot of people. How would you feel if I knew what your activity was? Would you be happy with that? Anybody would be okay? Yeah, you're the only one. This is the providers that I work with to help me lead all of our facilities in the clinic and the gym. They're pushing to get more access to data. Again, not one-to-one data, but just more access. And it's something that I have been resisting for a while. And every time I think I'm getting closer to like, okay, I think that makes sense. I think we can pull that off. I understand the value of understanding what's happening for our employees because, look, companies spend a lot of money on healthcare, right? So I feel like at some point, there should be an accountability that we can have to the employees that say, listen, we're spending all this money. We want to make sure that you're holding up your end of the bargain and being as healthy and taking care of yourself as much as possible. It's a very fine line. And just recently, there was something on one of the news shows that talked about this trend towards integrating all these wearable devices with healthcare, and I got nervous again. So I think it's just something that I have to spend a little bit more time getting either comfortable with, or maybe we're just not, I'm not sure yet. I think it's all too new, but I think the reaction is definitely mixed. There will be some people who won't care, and then there's going to be a lot of people who are like, no way. So I think there's other ways to get at it.
Okay, yeah, and look, I would agree with you, and I think there's a big debate around the personal data side of that. So, and does that drive healthcare costs down for people who are more healthy than others, and is that unfair? And so, there's a fairness piece around that I have an issue with. So I think I believe or agree with you. I think what I'd like to talk about now is, you've done some amazing things. What were some of the mistakes you made, or some of the areas that you learned from that you'd say to people, we tried this, it didn't work, or flip that and say, give it a go, and what have you got to lose? Well,
I always say give it a go. You have nothing to lose, because whatever doesn't work, you learn from it. I think it was from one of the other sessions. Like it's just good business sense. Like to me, it's like a no-brainer to be doing all of these things for all the reasons that we've already talked about. I think the biggest challenge, and I wish I had a good answer, is really pushing people's comfort in being able to take advantage of everything that does exist. Because we still hear from employees that they are challenged. Look, the business is a tough business, and if I'm going to spend 10 hours in the office, and I'm going to go take an hour to recharge or 20 minutes to recharge, that means I'm going to be in the office for 11 hours, I'm not doing it. So I think there's a really important mindset shift that's actually taking place. And I do give a lot of credit to Arianna Huffington for the work that she's done in both the writing of Thrive and the Sleep Revolution. I mean, she's really doing unbelievable work to start to shift all of that. If there's a way that we can help our employees recognize that if you can take that time, that 10 hours actually is going to be, maybe it's 8.5 hours. So if we can figure out how to capture that, I think would be really, really helpful. I'm not sure that I'm actually answering the question, though.
I think you are. And I think it's really important as managers and as leaders to trust your employees. We talk about flex time. We talk about the ability to let people work remotely. In reality, do managers really do that? And so my philosophy on that is, obviously, trust comes over time. Mm-hmm. So, you're not going to employ someone in the first week, oh, yeah, you can work from home, because you don't know enough about them. But I think as managers, you have to allow people that ability to work remotely. And you have to build that trust and have that comfort. So my question is sort of twofold. One is, how have managers embraced the wellness program? Mm-hmm. So both executive and middle managers. And who runs your wellness programs? Who oversees the wellness programs?
So our senior leaders actually take advantage of certainly the gym. They take advantage of the health center. Are they all taking time to kind of go meditate and recharge? Some are, not probably as many as I would like. And wait, what was the other question?
And the second part is who sort of oversees wellness? Is that an HR function?
It's an HR function. Okay. It's an HR. So it's myself, and then we have a health and wellness team.
Great.
And it's mixed with, it's part of the benefits team as well.
Great. Well, we're down to just under 5 minutes. So are there any questions? Hopefully there are some questions. It'll be embarrassing if there aren't. Otherwise, we can just open it up to the room. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I think you said earlier that you have people sharing their experiences of traveling and taking these trips, and it's fascinating for you to see. But not everyone, I think, from social media enjoys seeing all those activities that people do in their spare time because it's a fear of missing out, or someone's
Right.
life is better than mine, and then it contributes to possible mental health issues that they may already have, with depression or have you. So have you seen any indication of that being shared in your environment contributing to stress of others who might not be able to afford a trip, or think their lives aren't as great, or just sort of the comparison of the fear of missing out and how it impacts work?
I haven't specifically. I can't think of specific examples with that connection, but I would imagine it exists, because I think with social media and the whole fear of missing out, it's very real, and I would imagine there's many people who are suffering from that. I think that's just an issue of our times, more so than just what's happening within our companies.
And I think I could probably speak to that from what I experienced at Facebook. It's fascinating to me because all the people that were on my team who were more junior than I were having much better holidays than I ever could imagine. So,
Me too.
So I'm not sure how they managed to do it, but then I remember when I was sort of in my mid-20s, I didn't mind backpacking around countries. So I was actually reverse envy, because I would sit there and go, you just spent 2 weeks in Africa? I'd love to do that. Or you just climbed the Himalayas? Wow. I think what is important is to build a culture which values whatever each individual does. And so one of the things at Facebook we did was we really valued everybody's different experiences. So whether that was they went home and spent time with their family, or they actually went and spent time, volunteering somewhere. And so people sort of experienced that, brought it back, shared those experiences, and it enriched the teams.
Yeah.
And so there was no sort of judgment on, well, you had a better holiday than me. Clearly, obviously, there are going to be moments where people say, how did you do that? I'm jealous. But, at the end of the day, it's an individual thing, right? So if you really want to do that holiday, you're going to save up for that holiday. But the idea of, your holiday is going to be different to the idea of mine. I couldn't bear going and sitting on a beach for 3 weeks because I'd be bored out of my brain. So, I'm going to maybe go to Chicago or go to LA or go to London and spend a week. So it's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. But I think it's embracing the experience. So we do have some questions from the audience. We have a couple of minutes. So what is your top recommendation for low-cost wellness initiatives for a smaller company that may not have as much resources or dollars to implement?
I would take a survey of your employees and find out what matters. And you probably have a lot of talent within your organization where people can actually provide your environment with different types of experiences. This is something that we did a couple of years ago. We had a yoga instructor, we had somebody who was a meditator, we had somebody who was a hip hop dancer, and there was a period in time when employees were really interested in, and they want to share, they want to contribute to the culture, and they want to teach, and they're always looking for what we call kind of like that third bucket opportunity where they can get involved in different ways. So there's a lot of resources just within the employees that you have that might be a good place to start. And then you can also find out what's happening within your areas, because there's so many facilities, well, if not everybody's in Manhattan, but wherever your offices are, there's so many health and wellness opportunities now that you can cut a deal, and they do not have to be very expensive if you can't do it on site.
And I think to that point, what's really important if you do that is to actually encourage employees to take the time to go and do that. So if that means an hour in the day to go do meditation around, 2 blocks away, let them do that. Just because it's not on site doesn't mean you shouldn't give them the time.
Yeah, I mean, meditation, there are these meditation hubs popping up around Manhattan that you just can go walk in and sit and meditate for a few minutes.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating because all you need is just a place to sit,
So we probably have time for one more. So since introducing the wellness programs, have you experienced a reduction in any voluntary attrition?
I cannot make the connection specifically to the wellness programs. I don't think there's one thing that contributes to retention. I think it's the entire experience that you have within your organizations that contribute to the ability to keep your talents.
And perhaps I'll just speak, I know I'm the moderator, but I'll speak again, that I think the challenge for our industry right now is, when we are competing against the big consulting firms and the tech companies, Facebook's attrition is under 2%. And that isn't because of all the great perks. It's because people feel like they're able to live their true lives. And there's a reason it was number one. It isn't this year, for obvious reasons. But there is a reason for 3 years in a row it was America's number one place to work. And that wasn't because of the free lunches or the great offices. It was because as managers and as employees, you were given the opportunity to advance at an equal rate, and you were given the opportunity to look after yourself and encouraged to do that every day. And I think agencies really need to look at how do they encourage people to be their real selves, which I think benefits clients, because we're consumers. So we need to start treating our employees as consumers.
Great.
So I want to thank you very much for the conversation. It's been super interesting. I think we're going to a break now. But thank you, Eileen.
Thank you. Thanks.